My show's been canceled. That's what happens when shows get woke, Kara.
Now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy. It's a sister act as the goddess next door and the devilish diva team up in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy in paperback and e-readers everywhere.
Supergirl's sixth season will be its final one on the CW. And I'd have to say that this is a mercy killing by the CW because the Supergirl show has gotten progressively awful over the last 5 years. Now, when Supergirl started out on CBS, it was an absolutely fantastic show. And the reason why it was fantastic was because it was just like the comic books. And the episode where Supergirl teamed up with the Flash was basically like an old school DC comic. But all of that magic of the first season came to an abrupt end when CBS decided not to renew the show, and the show migrated over to the CW. And when the show migrated over to the CW, we started to see two horrible things happen to Supergirl. One was the dreaded Berlanti curse, where your shows that are a part of Berlanti Productions, once they enter their second season, or at the halfway point, what happens is the shows get a marked decline in quality, and the budget for Supergirl actually took a big hit from moving over to the CW. Now, these two things did a major dent as related to Supergirl overall's quality, but the worst thing that happened to Supergirl, in addition to the reduction of the budget and the whole change of network, was the fact that with the Berlanti curse came a new social justice narrative, because season one was basically a comic book come to life, but season two was where Supergirl stopped being about superheroes and started to be about social justice. And when Supergirl started to be about social justice, we started to see the creeping in of all of this feminism, identity politics, and intersectionality, and the organic storylines that were a part of season one were all but quickly abandoned. And what was really interesting about Supergirl in its second season was, in spite of its efforts to promote so-called feminism and identity politics, we started to see a lot of racism creeping in to the CW Supergirl. Because Mehcad Brooks, who was playing James Olsen, was brought on in season one to promote so-called diversity and was supposed to be presented as a love interest for Kara, but we started to see some pushback from some of these racist comic fans, and as a result, your Mehcad Brooks wound up with his role being reduced in Supergirl in the second season, and then he wound up becoming the so-called guardian for a while, and I saw that as a metaphor for making him the guardian of the friend zone, the ultimate white knight, because that's where Mehcad Brooks' character wound up becoming. He wound up being put into the friend zone, and then you had Mon-El brought in as the love interest to replace him. And after that, we started to see more and more social justice narratives being woven into Supergirl. And instead of it being a series about good guys and bad guys, we started to see more and more social justice being pushed to the forefront, and more identity politics being pushed on the show. And the show at that point stopped being about superheroes and it started to become a complete disaster. Now, season three was where I got off the Supergirl train because there was an episode there that just absolutely disgusted me, this finale where you had Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, one of the best things about the Supergirl show, a guy who practically captured the spirit of the Superman character next to the late Christopher Reeve. I mean, when you look at Tyler Hoechlin's performances, he was practically embodying Superman and everything that Superman was about. And they go out of their way to emasculate Superman in that season 3 finale by saying that Supergirl has just as much power as Superman and that she can actually beat Superman in a fight. And that's when I threw in the towel with Supergirl, because I know that that's just not physically possible even in the world of comic books, because a man is 8 times stronger in his upper body than a woman, and a man who is physically stronger than a woman would easily be able to beat a woman in a hand-to-hand fight. So that didn't make any logical sense to me when they tried to push this narrative, and they were pushing that narrative because it was all about pushing a feminist agenda and saying that a Supergirl could be equal to a Superman. Now, I want you to think about that, because here you have a Supergirl who is younger, 8 times weaker than Superman, and you're going to say that she's just as equally strong as Superman. And that's absolutely absurd when you think about it, even in the world of comic books where Superman is powered by a yellow sun. A Superman, again, is going to be physically stronger, even with mind control. And to push this narrative, that just was one of the worst things that they ever did, because they wanted to try to make it where Supergirl was a strong heroine, but that's not how you make a strong heroine. As a writer of strong heroines in books that I do, like the ISIS series and the E-Steam series, I know that you don't try to make the woman physically equal to the man. There are other ways to make a heroine strong, and those ways are related to their internal character. Because when I write heroines, I always try to focus on developing their internal character, because it's their internal character that draws people to these characters and makes us care about those characters. It's not that the character has to be a physical equal to a man. It's that the character has the integrity and the internal character to buckle down, develop a resolve, and overcome the obstacles. That's something I put in books like Isis, Bride of Dracula, where Isis was physically stronger than John Haynes, but John Haynes overcame because he had a stronger internal character and a resolve to help Isis overcome Dracula's hypnotism. And I put this in books like Isis, Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, where Isis had to overcome her personal feelings and grudge against Rahima in order to defeat Rahima, the Cyber Goddess, in that story. And I also put it in stories like Matilda Crowley in Spellbound, where she had to develop an internal character and resolve to overcome her feelings as related to the insecurity she had about being biracial and the fitting into this black box that was acceptable to white people and the bullies that came after her. These are the kind of struggles that make a story compelling, but we didn't get that type of storytelling with Supergirl because the writers wanted to get woke. The writers wanted to push so-called female empowerment, and when they did that, they wound up ruining a very promising show, because when Supergirl first came out in season 1, and it presented us with those episodes that were basically a comic book come to life. I mean, those were fantastic episodes. Supergirl was one of the strongest shows in the CBS lineup, and sadly, the ratings weren't what people thought they were, but I thought if they had just kept the writing really strong, the show could have bounced back. But when the show moved over to the CW, we got the Berlanti curse, we got the social justice, we got the identity politics, and we got to see a show actually just collapse before our very eyes. And the ratings showed this show just dropping like a rock. And one of the reasons why the show dropped like a rock was because of the feminist and social justice narratives that alienated old school comic fans like myself who were watching this show on the regular. And when we started to see that social justice being pushed in Supergirl, we had no more reason to keep watching Supergirl. And the show's ratings went from 12 million in the first episode on CBS. Now it's down to about 600,000 from last year's numbers, which were practically lower than some YouTube channels. I mean, there are YouTubers who get more views than your CW Supergirl got in its last season, and that's, I believe, one of the reasons why the show is going to be ending in this sixth season. And the reason why it's ending this sixth season is primarily because of those low ratings. And those low ratings primarily come because they wanted to push this social justice, they wanted to push this identity politics, and all that did was push the viewers away from this show and prevent the show from actualizing its potential. So when I look at the CW Supergirl, it's another one of those shows that fits the new adage of get woke, go broke, because once this show decided to get woke, that's when the show started to become a liability for the CW, a netlet where shows that get 1 million viewers are considered a hit, but this show barely getting 600,000 views, lower than some YouTube channels like your PewDiePie, your Jenna Marbles, and even some goth channels like Black Friday and Toxic Tears. This was a complete embarrassment to the CW because the CW spends over at least $1 million an episode on this show, and this show is not bringing in the money to keep it going. Because the CW let Smallville run for 10 years on its network, and it let Arrow run 8 years on its network, and they probably would have let Supergirl run even more. Now, some people are saying that it's because Melissa Benoist was pregnant, but I don't believe that at all because there are actresses who have worked through pregnancies. I believe that the reason why this show is ending in its sixth season is because there's no audience for Supergirl anymore, and the audience left once the show got woke, and now that the show is woke, the network is deciding to get rid of it before it goes broke. Now, if you want to pick up my books featuring heroines like Isis and E-Steam and Matilda Crowley, you can find all of those books in the Isis series, the E-Steam series, and the Spinsterella trilogy on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. And there you will find books that feature positive, strong black heroines that will inspire and uplift you. And if you want to see me make more comic videos like this, you can head over to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App and donate by clicking a link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com.